Hello and welcome back to the First Person podcast. It's been a few months since the last time we did one of these.
Probably.
Yeah.
Almost certain the last one had Carolee in it.
Yeah, but we just had a lot to say about Kingdom Hearts 3, so that's going to be the entirety of this episode. I wanted to just make like a small review video on it, and then I realized that there was probably way too much for me to talk about to keep it inside of a 20-minute video. So I figured I'd just talk to Brandon about it since we both played the game.
It's huge. It's so huge, it's technically two different games.
Okay, so yeah, right off the bat, go ahead and talk about that. Like, the game itself is not huge. It does feel like two different games, though. It feels like there's the idea that Disney wanted Kingdom Hearts to be, which is go have fun with your adventure animal friends and have fun. That is one game, and then you have the edgy Square Enix baby that's just like waiting for his time to shine. And I don't know, I feel like both sides kind of held each other back. Like, the story and the plot line that's been going through all of the games has been getting way too complicated up to this point. So they have to kind of shoehorn in every single resolution. And then the Disney worlds themselves feel like they were given most of the screen time, right? Like, there were a lot of Disney worlds going back and forth, but none of them really felt that full. And you still had the problem of Organization 13 showing up in every world for no reason. Sora's showing up for no reason at some point. Most of the time, he's going there for no reason other than, I think, Hercules. I think Hercules is the only one where he's like, I'm going to go see Hercules. So everybody's just kind of faffing about for like 8 hours, and they're like, okay, time to fight. And then everybody is happy.
Well, I mean, the big thing with at least the beginning of 3 was Sora needs to find out how to get his power of waking back.
And then he doesn't figure it out. And then he doesn't do anything.
Well, they don't say, oh, I figured it out. I think when, and this is a bit more towards the epilogue, so super spoiler, but,
Yeah, wow, that's a huge spoiler.
Yeah.
Tell you what, okay, I'm just going to censor everything you just said.
Okay.
We're just going to censor that, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through the story beat by beat. So we'll go world by world, and we'll kind of give our opinions on each world. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay, so in my opinion, Olympus, the first world that you go to, it's a really cool stage, but I've been to Olympus like 5 times at this point in the Kingdom Hearts franchise, and I think it was definitely saying the worst makes it seem like it was bad. It wasn't bad. It was like, you know how there's overwhelmed and underwhelmed?
Yeah.
Olympus had me very whelmed. And it was just kind of run-of-the-mill Kingdom Hearts stuff. They threw in some big moments in it that made you think, oh, yeah, this is Kingdom Hearts 3, you know? Like, you have the battle with the Titans. You learn how to run up walls almost immediately. Like, all of these cool moments, but it was still kind of a boring world for me. And also the ugliest. 100%, I can say that pretty confidently, the ugliest world.
My opinion is actually vastly different, because originally I was like, oh man, Olympus, you know, they've done it in every single game, but getting to Olympus, and it's just like, this is a whole entire different place.
Yeah, that's something that's been bothering me lately, is like how the Kingdom Hearts worlds work, because this whole time we've been under the assumption that the world Olympus is just Olympus, but now we find out that basically all of Hercules, like the entire movie, all of Earth from ancient Greece is the world that Hercules lives in. And it's really weird from like how their time system works. I think they finally explained that the whole thing's a multiverse, right?
Yes, they did mention that.
So everything inside of that world is there. So you could go to Mars in Olympus, technically, I think. Except Mars is a person. I don't know.
I think the easiest way to probably explain it would be, I'm not exactly sure where I'm getting this example from, But I know there was there's a book series called Charlie Bone, if I remember correctly.
Is that the one with the little ghost dude?
There might be a ghost dude. The main character Charlie though has the power to go into pictures.
Okay.
And like those pictures are their own world, stuff like that. Time doesn't go forward in those pictures. Like time doesn't go by. Those pictures are just pictures. They're like that forever.
So unless Sora goes to a world, nothing is happening in that world?
No, it's
because that seems a little iffy.
No, what I'm more so saying is that Hercules Earth will never go past ancient Greece.
See, that's even more weird because that just implies that there's a time loop where they're stuck in the plot line of the movie forever.
No, I'm not even suggesting that. It's like days go by, but what I'm saying is the Greece Empire never goes down or anything like that, and Hercules is always there. They don't age.
Yeah, the whole concept is really wonky to me.
But that kind of fits in with the Kingdom Hearts thing, like, it's like, do people really die or can they always come back?
Well, I mean, the answer to that is yes.
So, in that case, why would people age?
That's true.
Correctly, at least.
Yeah, I mean, people age in these games. Not well, not right, but they age. But let's break down Olympus real quick. So, it's the tutorial world. It's where you're learning most of your basic actions, right? And Kingdom Hearts 3 introduced a lot of stuff right off the bat. It was kind of overwhelming, but it was also probably the most excited I was during the game was when I was learning the new mechanics, right?
Right.
So new mechanics added to the game. Catch me if I forget anything. You can run up walls now.
Yep.
There are the new forms, which don't get introduced in this part just yet. No, second form gets introduced at some point.
Introduced in the world. It's the more exotic forms that aren't introduced because you don't have any other Keyblades yet.
Right, but transformations are introduced, and then there's the free flow system. What's it called?
Flow motion.
Flow motion. Flow motion is cool, but I feel like it could have been done better. But we're introduced to flow motion as well.
Well, this is actually where I'm going to have to interrupt you. So a couple of those things aren't introduced in 3.
To the main public, they're introduced.
Transformation was introduced in Birth by Sleep, and flow motion was introduced in Dream Drop Distance.
So, in a sense, though, this is a culmination of all of the weird gimmicks that all the other games have had combined together.
I honestly feel like they probably went and tried to listen to the fans a bit on this,
because Shotlock was something that was introduced in Birth by Sleep as well.
Yep, Shotlock was a big fan favorite, and they added that into 3. So I feel like it was them getting a feel on the systems that people liked and didn't like, and trying to find a culmination of all those systems to make one good battle system.
So, okay, those are the systems that are introduced, and then how do I want to say this? You know what? No, you say it. What is the quickest summary you can give of the story in the Olympus world?
In the Olympus world? Well, it's the Hercules movie where the Titans are attacking and and all the gods are getting
from Sora's perspective.
From Sora's perspective? Sora's perspective is he's coming to get Hercules' advice on how Hercules managed to get all his power back after he was super depressed the last time Sora saw him. And then from there, he goes to try and find Hercules, only to find, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Thebes, the city.
Thebes.
Is it Thebes?
Yeah,
I never remember.
Herc does say it exactly one time.
Yeah, so he comes to find Thebes is under attack. He finds Hercules, but it's quickly like, oh, we have to save the people that now live in this world.
Because that's another thing that's introduced is, I don't want to say NPCs are introduced because in a general sense...
They don't really do anything.
Well, no, that's the thing. NPCs have always been in the game. There's all of the characters that you don't play, they're NPCs. There are a few talking people in like Traverse Town and stuff like that in the first game, but this is the first time where you see kind of crowds, public people,
citizens per se.
And I didn't like that they introduced this idea in Olympus because the models are so dang wonky. Like I don't know. It doesn't. The animation style that they used for Hercules did not translate well into 3D whatsoever.
Well, I feel like they were trying most likely to stick a bit to how the movie looked, as far as
Well, yeah,
the
that's what
art
I'm saying.
style
Like
and all
the
that.
angular flat look that Hercules is made with looks great as 2D because it's like it's moving vase sketches, right? Like the things that are on the vases in Greece. It looks good. But then when you take it and you make it 3D, it almost looks like a really sad clay model. And I think they made the right decision by making all of the worlds after Hercules based off of 3D animated movies.
Right.
So, okay, this is my summary of Kingdom Hearts 2.9, which is how they introduce this world. I'm sad, gotta get better. Go see Herc friend, big Herc friend. Herc, why are things going wrong, Herc? Herc, bad things happen. Okay, let's go to town. Save people. Get on statue. Throw statue. I'm over here now. Save little girl. Save a couple more people. Surf on shield. Save a couple more people. Herc almost die. Herc almost die from fire. Fire bad. He sacrificed himself. Good boy. Climb mountain. Get to top of mountain. Kill bad guy. Done.
I mean, that's kind of it. It doesn't really involve like anything of what Herc says to him or anything like that.
That's kind of the point I'm getting at though, is that the adventure and the movements that they go through are just kind of like an example. Like the Hercules world itself is a smaller version of what the whole game is like. Yes, there are these big moments where he learns things and things happen, but none of it is with purpose. All of it is just kind of him falling and stumbling into situations that just so happen to have huge learning lessons behind them. Herc doesn't say, here's how to be a hero, let me train you on how to be a hero. It's just Herc is literally doing his own thing and Sora just happens to be there and he watches him.
Oh no, he asks Herc. He goes, how did you do it? How did you get your power back? And Herc goes, I really don't have an answer for you. I just believed in all my heart that I had to.
Yeah, I don't know. For the most part, other than the Titan fight was a really good way to hype up the combat. I really wish they would have done more to update how the combat system works, because coming off of a Square Enix game like Nier Automata or Final Fantasy 15, where it's that similar action RPG concept but with a way better control scheme, it's frustrating to see like these huge horde battles and nothing. Like, it's just people meme it, you know, they say press X to win and all that stuff, but it's just I don't know about you, but my thumbs started to hurt real bad. Like, I think I was starting to get carpal tunnel by the end of this.
I was fine.
But the combat in general was easy, I would say, up until the end. Like, I feel like the difficulty curve just spikes right at the end. Would you agree? Because for the most part, like, even I'd say the hardest boss fight outside of the final act of the game no, because I beat that. I don't think I died during that one either. When was your first death?
My first death was actually on Pirates of the Caribbean. And I found out it wasn't actually the final boss battle. It was before the final boss battle.
The ship battle, yeah.
Yeah, that was not fun for me.
So I'm not going to count the ship battles because that's a whole nother system, which, I mean, I have to give them credit for trying to make the game bigger, but at the same time, ship battles are right up there with Battle Royale games at this point. Like, every game has to have a ship battle for some reason. But did you die from any boss fights playing as just Sora?
The only one I did would have been Xehanort. At the very, very end.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like even the boss fights, which were explosive, beautiful boss fights, didn't really prove to be that much of a challenge.
I don't know if I would say that, because I did use Cure, Karaga, all those a whole lot. And there was definitely times where I came close to dying. But we also played it on standard, so we didn't play it on the toughest difficulty.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying the game was hard as in it was hard to beat. I'm saying, like, the amount of skill needed to actually play the game well was very low. Like, I remember Kingdom Hearts 2 being a pretty tough game and relying on multiple mechanics to save my ass. Like, I would get down to, like, very, very low health, and then I would jump into Valor mode, and I would try and kill as many things as possible to clear enough space so that I could safely heal. And there was it seemed like there was more strategy behind the combat then. And going back to Kingdom Hearts 1, which was super slow and weighty, it had this like oomph behind it. I think Kingdom Hearts 1 is now the black sheep of the family.
Kingdom Hearts 1 is definitely the toughest one.
Not even just difficulty, just presentation, mood, story beats, like everything about Kingdom Hearts 1 when compared to all of the games that came out after it, it is so vastly different in combat mechanics, in everything. And I never Kingdom Hearts 1, I never beat it. I watched all the cutscenes as a kid. I know the story by heart, but Kingdom Hearts 2 was the Kingdom Hearts game for me, and I think it still is. Like, 3 is good, but it's nowhere near the level of hype that we thought it would be. Like, I could tell when the tearjerk moments were coming. Don't talk about any of them just yet. We'll get to them. But even during those tearjerk moments, I felt like I should feel something, but there was nothing like the heavy hits that Kingdom Hearts 2 gave. Like, right out the gate, like, I guess my summer vacation is over. Like, that moment right there, the amount of sympathy you get for Roxas is the motivation for everything in this game. And Kingdom Hearts 3, I don't know, it just didn't hit me in the same way as I expected it to until the very end. And then I thought there were going to be consequences. And then I thought really hard. I was like, wait a minute. This is Disney. Things like that don't happen. And then immediately the emotions I felt were washed away because I knew any consequences would not be there. But, so do you have anything else that you want to say about the Olympus world before we move on?
Well, you had mentioned you didn't like the way it looked. Like, appearance-wise, you said it was probably the ugliest world, in your opinion. I would semi-agree with that. Except for at the top of Olympus. I thought that was well done.
Okay, yeah. So there was one thing I did want to bring up because this was actually kind of a letdown. So the top of Olympus, like the scale and the beauty of it was really amazing. And we found out something that we didn't realize right away because the first time I played through Olympus, I played it on Brandon's PlayStation and we kind of just ran through the first world together. And when I went back and I played that world myself on my own save file, I like just kind of wandered and ended up taking a completely different route from you.
Oh yeah, I told you at the time because I'd already played through the first world at that point, and I brought it over to play with you to show you kind of what it looked like, stuff like that. And you got up there, and I got confused trying to help you out on how to get further up, and I was like, "You're at a different place than I was."
And then, okay, so there was the difference between your first playthrough, our playthrough together, but then my third playthrough. I told you some of the things I saw, and you said you never saw any of those. Like, there was a light rail segment with a shooter part. Like, it introduced the light rail segment an entire world earlier than I think you were introduced to it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that level, I think, so it's a problem that a lot of game developers, writers, artists in general have, where it's like they put all of their work into that first bit. Like, they go hard on it, and then they kind of loosen up as it goes on in the middle, and then they go hard again at the end. Because Olympus left the impression in me that there was going to be more varying paths and not necessarily an open world, but more possible ways to get to those worlds. Like the added verticality to Kingdom Hearts 3, in Olympus, they went crazy with it. Like there's different mountains, there's different paths on the mountains, you can run up a certain wall, there's all these different aspects to it. And then you get onto the other worlds and they all seem fairly linear. Like, I don't know about you, but like the Toy Story level, it's all just one giant open mall with different floors.
It was easy to get a bit lost in that, like to know where to go.
Yeah, because they wanted you to be familiar with the store already. So that one was very simple. Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6 was semi-simple.
Yeah.
In the way that the different areas...
It was like a mini Spider-Man level almost, the way they designed it, which I thought was cool. Like, hey, give them a free roam area where they can have fun and parkour and play with all their fun abilities. But the world itself, because of that, was very empty. Like almost all of the plot lines in Big Hero 6 outside of the boss battles take place in Hero's garage.
Yes.
So I think Tangled was the most let down for me because it was actually just a straight line. Like you get to the swamp and you kind of run in a circle, and it's an open field area, and you figure out later on that they designed it that way because there's going to be a boss battle at the end of the game there. But it's a very straight line. It's very linear, and it just kind of broke me. It didn't break me, but it kind of let me down because I was expecting a much grander Kingdom Hearts experience this time around, and I got a very familiar experience with some little bits of fun here and there. So, anything else you wanted to talk about Olympus before we move on?
Yes. So I'm not sure if you found it. I found this when going back and to find more emblems and whatnot and trying to get some of the achievements. There is a forge in Olympus. It is a hidden forge.
I have not gone to the forge, but I read about the forge and I know it exists. What exactly do you do there? Is it just upgrading your keyblades?
No, there was no keyblade thing, but there was a little thing to do where you had to get these lava buckets to like align to pour into the forge. I think it just ends up giving you an item, if I remember right. But one of the emblems was down there, which is the whole entire reason I ended up needing to find this place.
So that to me, maybe there's more of that to the game, and as a collective, like nobody's gone that far to dig through it because it's so off the beaten path and there's not really a lot to do there. Like what I really would have loved to have seen was like little NPC hub towns, and then you go to the hub towns, you explore there, and then they say, hey, there's something over on the mountain. Then you go to the mountain, you come back to the hub town. Kind of like little side quests, kind of like Hero's Garage, you know? But instead of just being a tiny room that you load in and out of, it's like this nice little community. Like imagine that scene from the Tangled world where you're in that village, but you get to interact with it more, you know? There's actual storefronts, kind of. I wish every world had a Traverse Town-like center, or a Twilight Town-like center. I think that would have been a good way to go about it. But, yeah, overall, I think Olympus had some of the best level design, but some of the worst art, and it was kind of a false impression of what the rest of the game would be like.
Well, again, label it as 2.9.
Yes, also
So
that
it did separate it.
My first time playing the game was with Brandon. So after the cutscene where they say go to Olympus and it cuts to Kingdom Hearts and it like fades in and it looks all pretty, and then it hits you with 2.9, and then I just like verbally out loud was just like fuck you. It was such a cute little joke. I loved it because like Brandon said this. He was like, well, obviously it's 2.9. The last game was 2.8. They have to figure it out.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, so you know this was a problem and you're willing to make fun of it. But at the same time, you made this problem where you re-released
Well, 2.8 was actually its own thing. That had the Aqua chapter, and it ported Dream Drop from the 3DS to the PS4.
Yeah.
So 2.8 to me was a valid release.
It didn't have to be, though, you know? Because I think one of the biggest complaints that everyone's had about Kingdom Hearts as a series is that you've had to spend hundreds of dollars on it to get all these niche consoles just for one game. Like, Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is probably one of the only games I own for my PSP. And, you know, they're all over the place, and it doesn't make sense why they did it. Like, it was originally a Sony game, you know? It was on the PlayStation 2, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, and then they were like, oh, hey, Chain of Memories, you know, in between 1 and 2. It's a prequel. You don't really need it to understand it, but also it's on the Game Boy Advance.
They also remade that for the PS2 at some point.
Oh yeah, no. Eventually they remade it, but at the same time, that doesn't.
I'm not sure.
That
if
doesn't
came
excuse.
or not.
That doesn't excuse them for splitting their games across a myriad of consoles for absolutely no reason. You can't tell me that the Game Boy Advance was the best console to choose for that game.
Well, it might have not.
I feel like Nintendo paid them to release games on their consoles because the same thing happened with 358, which honestly, I think 358 is probably story-wise my favorite over Kingdom Hearts 2. Kingdom Hearts 2 did a good job of setting up Roxas with very little backstory, but understanding his tragic life really hits me. Like, it hit me in the core. And that was before they started making a trend of every single game being a group of 3 friends, and then they all get separated, and they all get sad, and then one of them dies, and then it's like, oh no, we have there's the Nobody group, there's the Birth by Sleep group, there's the original Sora group, there's the Sora Donald Goofy group. I feel like there's one more I'm missing, but there's like at least 4 or 5 sets of 3 that all get just absolutely depressed constantly. It's the most depressing and sad story in the world until it all gets fixed. So, moving on from Olympus, what was the next world you played?
I want to say it was Tangled.
I went to Tangled first.
No, it was Olympus, and then you go over to
Twilight.
Town.
Twilight Town was, I think, the game series as a whole always shines when you're in Twilight Town, because you have this kind of melancholy feeling. Twilight Town is never used as an actual adventure. It's always got this air of mystery to it. You know, you go to the mansion. I feel like the weight of the encounters at Twilight Town have kind of diminished over time because of how often you explore Twilight Town, and it becomes less of this mysterious place and somewhere you're familiar with. So it goes from this feeling of apprehension whenever you're approaching it, like, I don't know what's going to happen here, to this is my home, you know? Like, after Recoded and after a couple of the other games where the digital aspect of Twilight Town is more explored and explained, the mystery goes away. And I think the mystery is probably my favorite part of Twilight Town. Like, the 3 kids just being like, yo, weird shit going on, all these white blobos, we need to figure out how they do. And it's cool. It's cool to me. I like Twilight Town. It's a nice small reprieve from the rest of the game, and I wish there were more times where the game took those breaks, because you revisit Twilight Town maybe one more time after that in the story.
I believe so, yeah.
And Twilight Town is the only other area like that. In Kingdom Hearts 1, you had Traverse Town and Hollow Bastion. In Kingdom Hearts 2, you had Twilight Town and Hollow Bastion. And at least there's the beginning, the middle, and the end, right? So it's usually you start off in this little town, then you go to a new little town, and that's kind of like your break from all the crazy stuff that's happening. There wasn't really a break in the middle this time, like a moment of reprieve, like a filler episode, you know?
Right.
I feel like stories that are heavy like this can really benefit from a filler episode, but there wasn't enough tension to really require it this time around, right? Like, the whole game feels like it's building up, but there's no tension in the worlds themselves.
Right. Well, I mean, there's always the tension that the Organization 13 people say what they're doing. You know, they basically try to threaten Zora into finding enough Guardians of Light.
Yeah, in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, there were problems in those worlds, and he was going there to fix them. In Kingdom Hearts 3, there's problems, but they're the problems that the world is experiencing. There's the whole don't mess with the order thing, right? So Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, his reasons for going to the worlds was to seal away the darkness, or, stop other people from messing with these worlds. In Kingdom Hearts 3, Sora's just kind of like, point my key at a thing and go somewhere and then just make new friends, which making new friends with Sora is a great experience, but I don't know. I feel like they should have done more with the worlds.
It depends on how you look at it, because a lot of the worlds in Kingdom Hearts 2 are the same thing. It's the organization kind of meddling a bit, but otherwise the problem in those worlds is the problem from their movies.
But in
the easiest
2,
example is in 2 is Beauty and the Beast.
In 2, the organization is directly affecting and causing the movie plot to happen. Like,
not necessarily.
In 3, though, they're just watchers. If anything, they're there to keep Sora in check, because they go like, hey, like, Organization 13, they almost had this air to them in this one where it was like, yeah, we're the bad guys, but at the same time, stop fucking shit up, please. Can you just go away? Like, you're not supposed to be here. Why are you here? Like, even Organization 13 is getting as annoyed as Yen Sid that Sora isn't doing his job. And it gets to the point where they're so annoyed with Sora not doing his job that they're just like, shit, we might need a backup plan because this kid is such a dumbass. You know?
Right.
And that's why I like the Monsters, Inc. world the best when we get to it, because that is one of the only times where it's a very direct thing, you know? Like, Randall meets Vanitas and they work together and they do bad shit. And to a lesser degree, Toy Story as well. But Frozen and Tangled definitely suffered the most. So, the next world after Twilight Town for you, did you go to Tangled next?
Yeah, I went to Tangled. But one thing to say about Tangled was that one was direct interference on it. They weren't interfering with Rapunzel, but they were saying, like, to the mother.
They were goading on Mother.
They're like, you need to find her.
Yeah. The main gripe I had about Tangled, other than the linearity of the level, I like Tangled. It's one of my favorite Disney movies. And you see the first 10 minutes of the movie, and I was smiling watching Rapunzel go through her existential crisis, and then Sora just kind of sitting there watching. Like, I enjoyed that. That was a cute moment. And you hang out with them for a little bit on their adventure back to the castle, and then you get separated from them, and literally almost half of the movie happens without you getting to witness it. And Sora's just kind of faffing about on his own. They show up to the village, they meet up with them, and then you get a little bit more of the story, but there are so many major story beats that are not covered in this version. Like, you never see what's in Flynn's satchel. You never know that it's the crown. You can to a degree expect us to know the story and fill in those gaps on our own, but for me, part of the fun of the Disney worlds is experiencing those stories again.
Wait, I'm a bit confused here. They showed the crown in the satchel.
Eventually, yeah, but not until way later.
Well, right. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't, but you know what does matter? Missing the whole goddamn bar fight. I wanted the bar fight so bad. And the giant set piece where they're in a dam and the dam breaks and they're running from the water. That would have been such a fun flow motion kind of cutscene to have, where he's jumping from barrel to barrel, running along the walls. Suddenly a boulder's coming after him. He slices it in half. Like, there could have been so many cool action set pieces in that world, and they just kind of float over them. You get the first 10 minutes, Flynn meets Rapunzel, a little bit of walking time, then suddenly you're at the end of the movie. The big bad thing happens where it's like, oh no, I don't love you, and he sails away, and you get the conclusion. And then it's done, and I feel kind of neglected. I feel like the Tangled world could have been way more fun. I mean, come on. How many songs did they do for Frozen? 2 songs. They could have taken one of those songs away and gave it to Tangled. I mean, come on. I do think that one of the best moments in the Tangled world, a lot of people didn't like it from what I've seen online. I liked the dance in the village.
Dance was fun.
I think that was a fun, cute way to kind of bond with the characters, you know? But
achievement to score a certain amount on that.
Yeah. So I think the way my grading system works right now is, I think the earlier worlds are definitely the least interesting, and then it seems like the deeper into the game you get, the more fun the world's got.
Well, I'm a bit confused at this point on your perspective.
I'm very half and half. There are parts that I loved and enjoyed, but overall the game still made me feel kind of empty in the end.
Well, right, but because before you were stating how you're a bit upset how the problem is just the movie itself, but then you complain that they didn't show enough of the movie.
Yeah, no, I understand that's confusing, and it's confusing for me too, because, you know, okay, so this is how I can say it. If that's the route they're gonna take, then they should do a better job of it. If this game in the series is going to be Sora just going along and having adventures with these Disney characters, then we should see more of the interactions with those characters, because so much of the plot happens without you seeing it. The same thing happens with the Frozen world too.
Well, I feel like this game was a lot more about showing how Sora isn't as connected to these Disney characters as he thought he was. Like, you get to the point where he goes to the book to see Pooh Bear.
That was an interesting moment. It was kind of rushed, I feel. I feel like that story could have had a bit more to it. Also, side note, there is a fan-made 3D animated trailer that dropped before Kingdom Hearts came out, and it showed Sora visiting Pooh in the 100-Acre Wood, and they spliced together some voice clips in a very well-done way to make it look like Eeyore fell to the darkness, and Brandon fell for this trailer really hard.
I was drunk when I watched it the first time.
To be fair, though, I think we both really wanted that plot line to happen.
I really did, and Eeyore was not in the game.
Eeyore wasn't in the game at all, so maybe he was out plotting with Organization 13 all that time.
Him and the real Goofy.
Because the fake Goofy was created using bees. But that's I feel like the Winnie the Pooh world, because usually they're a little bit longer. You know, you go on adventures with them.
Right. Usually you're there to help out Pooh Bear and to show him how, even though all his friends are missing, he still has a friend to help him out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm getting the feeling of Kingdom Hearts 3 coming from here, is that it's about how even if Sora has made friends, that maybe their hearts aren't connected as he thought they were.
The message and the emotions that occur in the Winnie the Pooh segment are very, very well done. But I feel like the idea that it's 3 Bejeweled mini games and you're done, I would have liked to have lived in that world a little bit longer and enjoyed it a little bit longer. But it did do a good job of doing what I said and having a little break from the regular gameplay. So I'm a little torn on it, because the Pooh Bear world, the 100-Acre Wood, is definitely a major nostalgia for me, just because they use the theme songs from the original TV series that I watched when I was a kid. This is a character that I grew up loving, and I'm pretty sure, I can't remember, but I don't think Christopher Robin's in any of the Pooh world, so I think they basically turned Sora into Christopher Robin, which essentially means you're Christopher Robin, and it's always a really heartwarming time, especially when you're a kid or a young teenager, and you're just, it brings you back to that moment in your childhood.
Like, you mentioned not feeling anything in the tearjerker moments. Did you feel anything when Pooh Bear goes, "Why have you left"?
I didn't have a tearjerker moment, no. I felt this, it felt, I don't know, I wanted to feel something for it, I did, but it almost felt like it was too forced. Like, this was a very sudden development, and it was resolved very quickly, so it didn't feel like it had as much depth as it could have. And I think that could have been solved by having the world be a bit longer, you know? Like, maybe we learn about Pooh's loneliness despite his friends being around, and you go on small adventures with him. You can still have those mini games involved, but maybe instead of just, playing Bejeweled in Rabbit's garden, you go on a trip to find some honey, or you do calisthenics with Pooh, because that is one of my favorite things in the world, is Pooh does his little uppy downies every day. I feel like it could have been better, and I think that feeling is what got in the way of me having my emotions like really struck by that scene. It was good, but it could have been better, and I still think that's my opinion of the game as a whole. So Tangled, probably my second least favorite world. Where does it rank for you?
Tangled, I felt like it was too big, honestly.
Okay, as far as like walking distance, like literally
Yes.
physically too big.
It took too long to get from the tower to the kingdom.
I would agree with that.
I felt like it dragged on.
It dragged on for forever, and no plot happened in that time. It was very stretched out. I would have to agree with that.
But they did. I will say this: I feel like they did a better job of putting enough save points. because there was always periodic save points, which is always important for when you want to go revisit a world.
Yeah, that's a part of Kingdom Hearts that I've never done. When I'm in a world, I'm always purely invested into that world until completion. I have never left and gone to another world. I did do the kitchen. I was really scared the first time I used the kitchen because I thought it would literally take me to Twilight Town and I would have to fast travel back. But the idea that you just pop into the kitchen and pop back out and you're right back in the main world, that really helped me accept the food crafting system, which I enjoy on its own. I was hoping for a full-blown Ratatouille. No, I was hoping for a more full-blown Ratatouille story, but I can see how that probably wouldn't have been a good story at all.
I'm glad that they didn't.
And I also like the fact that Remy doesn't talk, so you actually have to communicate using hand signs and like pulling on his hair and stuff. I think that was a good touch. Remy was definitely one of the cutest characters in the show in the game. And I also think that the animators did a really good job of expressing his emotions very well. Like there were multiple times where I said aw when I saw that little rat. Like it was good stuff.
Little chef.
So after Tangled, are you allowed to make your first world choice yet, or is this all still kind of one by one?
First world choice?
Yeah, because it's usually 2 worlds and they have level caps on them, quote unquote.
Well, so they're split up 4 worlds, then the Keyblade Graveyard. So there's Olympus, Twilight Town, Tangled,
and
there's Toy Story.
Toy Story was the last one in that 4.
Yes.
So Toy Story, by far, probably my favorite world.
It was definitely one of the ones I enjoyed.
I had the biggest, dumbest smile on my face the moment we got sucked into that world, and I wasn't expecting it, but the voice acting was amazing. I never went back to see if they got Tom Hanks and Tim Allen.
They did not. They got his brother.
Well, they did a really good job getting the characters, and the kind of... First off, being in that bedroom immediately got me. The fact that the theme for the entire world is "You Got a Friend with Me," and then they just change it up with instrumentals. Like, I will never get tired of that song. And there was just so many cute aspects, like watching Rex freak out about the video game and just dork out, watching all of the characters just be those characters was really nice. It felt like it was, because this is what I was getting at earlier. Toy Story is a Pixar movie. It's a 3D animated movie, and it's the first world. Like, Tangled looked really pretty, but Toy Story was the first world where I felt like I was in the movie, and it felt so good to be a part of that movie, because I think that's what it is my enjoyment of the worlds definitely comes, like a major part of it comes from how much I cared about the movie as a kid. Would you agree?
Yes, and I believe the reason that I probably felt that way is because Toy Story was actually one of the ones that didn't take place during the plot of the movie.
I think the plot that they chose for the Toy Story world was an interesting one, because, you know, the whole reason for their existence as toys is to make their owner happy, and when Andy's not there, they feel abandoned, which is a major plot point for Toy Story 3. And I think they did a good job of hitting all of the major themes of, like, what these characters live for, what they do, how they feel when their meaning is taken away from them. It was definitely one of the best well-written worlds, despite the very silly premise that it's a copy of that world and they took some of them and separated them. Like,
it makes sense.
It makes sense in a Kingdom Hearts way, right? Because the way Xehanort describes it is, when we separate them, what happens? You know, it's like a mental experiment, and that's a really cool idea, but at the same time, it's also just a really lazy way to write off why the world is empty and only a few of the characters are in it, because it could only afford a few of the characters in the show and in the game, and it worked. It worked very well for what it was. That said, the level design for Toy Story was a little lacking for me. The Andy's room, really well done. Very well put together, and I think that's because there's a lot of reference material for that. You can make Andy's room look good. And then you go outside, and it's just a giant empty driveway and street, and it kind of pulled me out because it was a cool way of showing the scale, you know, like, hey, look how small you are. But then you get to the toy store. I will say this. The individual stores within the toy store are great. They're full of life. They're really well designed. They all have different themes. You know, you've got the kindergarten play place. You've got the video game store. You've got the toy store, which, oh my God, yes, this is one of the major things I wanted to talk about. So yeah, there's the whole theme of separating them from each other, but Buzz has this crazy existential crisis, and he makes these really good points because this is one of the only worlds where the Heartless, like, there are Heartless just there, but the way the Heartless interact with the Toy Story world is by possessing the toys. And in the Toy Story world, toys have sentience. So by taking over a toy and fighting that toy and killing the Heartless, yes, you have the whole Disney explanation of, oh, the heart goes away and then it's in Kingdom Hearts and then eventually it comes back and it gets reassigned. So Sora's technically not killing any Heartless. But he is 100% killing those toys. And Buzz has this huge moral and ethical crisis inside of him on whether or not they're doing the right thing. And it causes the schism between him and Woody. And it's great. I loved every moment with Buzz being rational and almost hurt by Andy, and then Woody, like the back and forth between Woody and Buzz was really good. Yeah, I think the only downside to the Toy Story world was the main lobby to the world. It felt a little too empty to me. The grinding, the rail grinding to get to the different levels, that was pretty cool. There were some secret areas. Did you go up into the ceiling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went into the ceiling as well. Yeah. I did not play a single one of those games. But I think the story for Toy Story was one of the best ones. I think that they really hit the nostalgia on that one. And I loved it. It was one of my favorite ones, except for one part. What do you think that part was? Oh, yeah, okay. So, first off, I'm a big mech boy. I like mech anime. I like mechs, Transformers, big robots fighting. My favorite shit. So when you go into the toy store for the first time and those giant robots are there and you're like, oh man, a boss battle already? And then I think it's either Donald or Goofy is just like, why don't you do that too? He's like, what? Get in the robot? He's like, get in the robot, Sora. Oh my God, we got in the robot. There's 3 different robots. They have cool HUD displays, and I was having a blast with that. What did you think of the robots?
I mean, they were fun. I didn't like the little mini game.
That's what I was going to say. That is the one part of that world that was really bad for me because it was so meh, you know?
It was. Personally, I liked, once I was strong enough, fighting the bad robots without being in a robot. But otherwise, I mean, you know, it was just punch and shoot.
How did you feel about playing in the robot? Because for me, playing in a robot, period, is one of my favorite things to do, period. But knowing you as somebody who doesn't really like that, how did you feel about them? Because obviously, like you said, the moment that you didn't have to fight in a robot, you wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Was it a thing that you avoided? Was it a thing that you just kind of accepted and pushed through?
It was probably something that I avoided. But also because, you know, fighting the robot without being in one was more challenging.
So, do you think it was a bad decision, or did you just...
I wouldn't say it was bad, because, I mean, again, some of this might be because of my aversion to mechs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know there's definitely people out there that did enjoy it.
Like me. Give me a mech any day of the week, baby.
Just wait to the Gundam world.
Oh my God. And we got to talk about Woody's badass scene at the very end of the world.
When he lassos Buzz down with his string.
Oh no, I completely forgot about that. Oh, so one of the things that I was really curious about in this game was there are some characters in this that are in your party and fight with you that you would just not think would fight ever. Like Flynn and Rapunzel, they have very interesting fighting styles that make sense for them. Rapunzel fights with her hair in her frying pan. Flynn does barrel rolls for some reason. He just materializes barrels and rolls them everywhere.
Yeah.
That's fine. But the moment the piggy bank, I forget his name, Ham. The moment Ham says, maybe that's why Buzz's laser is actually a laser in people. It's like, oh shit. That's really cool. I wonder how Buzz fights. So I actually stood back and just let the Heartless fight, and I watched Woody and I watched Buzz to see how they interacted. And Woody fighting is one of the goofiest things. Did you watch any of it?
No.
You know how Luigi, his little fight where he throws his hands out and he goes da-da-da-da-da?
Yeah.
That's how Woody fights. He's very noodly and slappy. He knows noodle foo. And then Buzz is in his element. You know, for somebody who feels really bad about what he's doing, it still seems like a thing that he's always wanted to do.
Well, one thing that I feel that contributes to that is the original Toy Story movie,
Where he thinks that he is a soldier.
Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah. And
It's something that's ingrained into him. It's something that he feels he should be doing, that is his job.
And I think they did a good job of showing that in the way he fights. Oh, man. So, yeah. Once you get to the very end of the game, not the very end of the game, the very end of the world, there's this, they're talking about how darkness comes from separation and loneliness, and you can see Buzz being kind of skeptical of the situation they're in, but you don't really think any of it.
I don't care.
No, we're not there yet. So Woody is kind of always lending an ear to Buzz and helping him through these situations, and then suddenly Buzz is gone. Where's Buzz? He's with the darkness. So you go into this dark realm. It's just goopy darkness energy everywhere. Sora has a hearts and darkness talk. Darkness, heart lights, darkness, dark. And then Xehanort looks at Woody and he's just like, I'm going to talk shit to you. You don't have a heart. Hearts are this, hearts are that. And Toy Story is a world where the concept of hearts doesn't even exist. So Woody looks him dead in the eye and he goes, I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't care. Give me my friend. And then, boom, fucking his energy, his light, his confidence starts tearing away the darkness of the world. His positive attitude and his love for his friends is what is able to save Buzz from basically his depression. Like, this is one of the few times where the allegory of light and dark in Kingdom Hearts actually works the way it should, in my opinion. And it's just so cool. Because, yeah, Woody just lassos Buzz out of there. They get him down. They talk him out of it. And he's like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. And then happy ending. Well, boss fight, then happy ending. So I've gushed about Toy Story enough. Do you have anything else that you want to add on to that?
Not really. Not into that world.
That wasn't one of your favorites?
I mean, it was one of my favorites, but my favorite was most likely Monsters, Inc.
I think that's the next one we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's one of the next four at least.
Because I remember there being a choice between Monsters, Inc. and I think the other one was Pirates?
It was Monsters, Inc.
It was between Monsters, Inc. and Frozen.
Yeah.
And when I saw that choice, I don't know about you, but I immediately flew to Monsters, Inc. Like, I was ready for that one. After coming off of Toy Story, I was ready for more.
I don't remember. I went based on level recommendation. So, and I don't remember which order I went in. Frozen was definitely one of the ones I didn't want to go to, though.
I saw people talking about the game. I tried to keep myself spoiler free as much as possible until I was playing it, but I definitely saw people talking about there being songs in that level, and I was not in for that ride. Because here's the thing. Kingdom Hearts, we've talked about this before, was a game made for teenagers in the early 2000s, right?
Yes.
The only people who are playing Kingdom Hearts 3 are people that were teenagers in that time. The only people
maybe
they've
re-released them, so it's possible the younger generation. I mean, that was the purpose of re-releasing them.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, but the core group of people that were excited for this game, for the completion of it, are people that have been waiting for this for like 10 plus years now. And if it was me and I was choosing the worlds, I would have chosen worlds that would have struck a chord with the millennials. Like,
We're talking about Tron.
no, Tron's actually, when I saw Tron in Kingdom Hearts 2, I was like really confused because that movie is old as hell. And I only saw it because my dad's a movie buff and he showed it to me.
Oh, you don't know this. Tron was in Dream Drop 2. But it was the new Tron.
That's interesting. I like that they had that progression in it, but it was really upsetting to me to see the supercomputer in the background, and I was like, oh, cool, we're going to go back to Tron, and we never went back to Tron. Because despite the fact that I don't have an emotional connection to that movie, I thought that was one of the
It's a cool world.
It was a really cool world. I liked it. I liked the design for it. I liked the story beats. It was neat. But is it time for Monsters Inc.? Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would have chosen movies that the 90s kids would like. You know, only 90s kids remember this. And I think the reason that they couldn't do that was, for the most part, they already did all of those movies in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, you know?
Well, I mean...
And you can only lean so hard into Pixar before you make it Pixar the game.
Right, and you also need to view, like, there's... I know they've done Olympus a lot of times, stuff like that, but there's definitely a couple of these worlds that they've done in the other games that just can't be redone that many times.
No, you're right. I thought...
Like,
see,
I wouldn't be able to handle it if they put Tarzan in it.
no, Tarzan was definitely... Oh, but I feel like this one would have been a really good one for Tarzan.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure the world would be awesome and everything like that, but there's just not enough story to Tarzan.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And they've already done... Like, I know Beauty and the Beast technically wasn't in 1 per se, but Beast and the Princess were as characters.
Staying away from the Renaissance movies was probably their best bet because they've probably been done to death at this point. Like, they're a sponge and they've wringed out every last drop of water in them. But, so, okay, what would be your number one world that they should have added that they didn't?
Number one world they should have added but didn't.
Like, what would have been the world where you have been like, yes? Because I've got two. One of them is very loose and doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then the other one is just like, I'm still pissed off about this.
I'm going to guess the one that you're still pissed off about is a Star Wars world.
Yes, but yours first.
I'm going to need to think on that.
You want me to tell you my stupid one first?
Go ahead.
Did you ever play the GameCube Disney skateboarding game?
No.
Oh my god, it was great. It was built on the same engine as Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and it was just a bunch of 90s fucking bops, right? Like Blink 182, like all that kind of shit. And if you remember, Kingdom Hearts 2, you could use a skateboard.
In the old Disney world.
Yeah, they had a skateboard in it, and you could do tricks. And I was like, it would be so cool if you could, okay, so having a Disney World that is the skate game would make no sense because the skate game itself is going to different Disney Worlds and skating there. But just having like a nod to it where like there's a skateboard in Traverse Town, I think it would be really cool to have a skateboard in Traverse Town and just flipping and doing tricks all over the place. I think that would have been a really cool touch. Just because Sora is so extreme that, like, oh, hey, a barrel. I'm just going to breakdance and get some money, right? But, yes, I am very mad that Star Wars wasn't in it. I understand why Star Wars wasn't in it. But with the way the new gummy ship levels work, which is amazing, by the way. I love that it's this open area.
Yeah, I did enjoy the open worldness of that.
Yeah, and that you have to kind of traverse your way through all of it, and there's random encounters with enemies. But there are some huge boss fights in the gummy world. And they're all really cool and very space themed. And there is literally the final gummy ship area is you're inside of a giant battle station and you have to get out of it. How hard would it have been for not even an entire world, but just you're flying around and then one of those random events happen and then boom.
It's Death Star.
No, not a Death Star, because that would have been the world. They could have done the world of just being the Death Star, but just like one giant Imperial Star Destroyer, right? And you have to shoot it down, you have to fight it, and maybe a TIE fighter comes out and Darth Vader's in it, and like just like one little space battle, right? Because then you don't have to worry about a funky Keyblade design where Sora's Keyblade's a lightsaber, you know? Like, because I can understand from multiple different points of view why it would be a bad idea to add Star Wars to it, but just one space fight like that, and then maybe like the Rogue Squadron like links up with you, and you're part of a team, and you have to fight together using the same mechanics as the mini gummy ships. Like, that could have been a really cool experience, and I'm upset that it wasn't in it. So, do you have one?
Yes.
What is it?
Mickey's World. The
Like,
Disney Castle, everything like that.
Like Toontown, or
No. I'm speaking specifically the Kingdom. Where Mickey is king at. So that they.
Why would you want to go back there?
Because I feel like they could have done some moments there where, like if the darkness was encroaching on there more so, or if something tragic happened to one of the characters there.
Oh yeah, I would
that
really get
built
behind
a
that.
lot on that.
I think that's a really cool direction to go with it, but I also like the idea of that world just being like a moment's reprieve kind of thing, and it's like Donald gets to see Daisy.
Yeah, and then that's another side of it. A lot of the times Donald will talk about Daisy, and you always see Minnie in some of these cutscenes here and there.
It would have been a nice moment for them to be like, kind of like when the military comes back on leave,
Exactly.
I think that would have been a really cool, heart-touching moment. Also, I figured out a way that skateboarding could have been an actual world. Where is Max? Where is Max Goof? Also, where is my extremely
Kingdom
goofy
Hearts
movie?
takes place before Max.
No, because
Goofy's an old dad that.
If Donald
has
has
seen some
Huey,
shit.
if Donald has Huey, Dewey, and Louie, Max is at least alive. Whether it's Kid Max and we go to Goof Troop, or if it's extremely goofy movie, I don't care. All I know is it would have been dope as hell to see.
Wait. You do realize Huey, Dewey, and Louie are not Donald's kids.
Yeah, no, they're not Donald's kids, but they're the same age as Max.
If they're the same age as Max, wouldn't they be teenagers?
They stopped aging at some point. I don't know when it happened, but you remember Toon Disney, right? And they had all the different shows. There was Goof Troop, there was DuckTales.
Kind of. I mean, I didn't watch all of it.
Well, for the most part, they were all considered one continuity, like an extended universe type thing, and there'd be crossover episodes and all that stuff. And then there's like the Christmas specials where Max comes home for Christmas from college and all that stuff. And Huey, Dewey, and Louie do not age, but the moment Huey, Dewey, and Louie started existing is around the same time when Max existed. So the idea of Max not being around kind of bums me out, because I just really want to see Goofy get on his shield and grind some gnarly half pipes. I think that'd be fun.
Well, I mean, and I'm not sure if this is ever mentioned, as I'm not that into the Goofy lore, but Goofy never mentions anyone back at the castle. No significant other or anything like that.
Well, there's always been a lot of mystery behind Goofy's wife. There's one cartoon called "What to Do When Your Wife Is Away" or something like that, and it gets a lot of attention because of one joke in it, which is Goofy opens the door, the milkman delivers the milk, and then kisses Goofy on the face because he doesn't see it's Goofy. He assumes it's his wife, and then closes the door. And Goofy plays the oblivious dolt that he is, and he just goes, "Wow, the milkman's really friendly," when obviously the implication is that his wife is having an affair. But in like the big like Goofy and Max stuff where he is a single father, they never explain what happened to the mother, whether she left them, whether she died, whether there even is a mother, if Max was adopted or something crazy like Goofy just, self-replicates. None of that's ever explained.
And I also might be imagining this, but from watching the Goofy movies, the Goofy that's in Kingdom Hearts looks younger. Not sure if it's a feeling or if it's an actual physical look, but there's definitely just something.
He's definitely got more style.
There's just something about him that feels younger.
I think that would have been a really cool thing though, because Pete, Max's best friend is Pete's son.
Right.
So considering that Pete is an antagonist in this, to have that kind of back and forth between Goofy and Pete, having their kids be friends while they're mortal enemies. I think that would have been a really cool plot line to have, but I think that would have had to have been introduced earlier in the series in order for it to really stick.
Most definitely.
For that to come in now would have been bad, because Kingdom Hearts 3, the theme of Kingdom Hearts 3 is just tie up every loose end.
How do you...
Except for the ones that they added!
No, except for the one that they just left. How do you feel about Maleficent?
We're gonna get there when we get to the end of the game. So let's breeze through some of the worlds. Monsters Inc. That was your favorite world.
Yes, and that might be just because it takes place after Monsters Inc. the movie, and it shows that Boo was still there and is now hanging out with Sully and Mike, and that's just amazing. So that was a very feel nice.
It gives me kind of creepy vibes though. Like they spend a lot of time with someone else's child. There is no consent.
If she has parents.
She has parents.
Have you ever seen them?
No, but I mean, she lives in a house and she's a child.
Could be an orphanage.
It could be an orphanage. I don't know, but
really fancy orphanage.
I wish there was more to that world than just the factory. But other than that, I think it was a really fun world. Not as heavy on the plot as Toy Story was.
Yeah, but I think that's okay.
I think that's okay too. I absolutely hated. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I did not like the voice actor they got for Randall. It was way off.
Honestly,
it was way off from the original.
I didn't notice it at all because it's been so long since I've watched Monsters Inc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been so long since I've actually heard the original voice actor for Randall.
What did you think of the Doors? There were some points where we were talking and you geeked out about the Monsters Inc. world.
It depends on how you're asking. I've always enjoyed the door system to Monsters Inc. But
so how did you feel when you actually got to be in it and go through it? How was that?
It was interesting how they traversed through the factory, sometimes through going through different doors.
Oh my God, that was one of my favorite parts. Yeah. So the two things that I loved most about the Monsters Inc. world was when you were in the doors and you're riding on the rails, because let's be honest, when we were kids and we saw that in the movie and they're holding onto a door and they're riding through it, you're like, I want to do that. Like you see at Menards or Lowe's or something that's similar to it, you're suddenly just going through it.
Nope, can't do that. I've broken things there.
Exactly. Because you were trying to have fun.
No, because I was inside a bathroom cabinet.
Trying to teleport through doors. Yeah.
I don't know why.
Dude, I've seen people poop in those toilets, all right? The display toilets. It's fine. But, oh my God. Going through the railing system was one of the funnest things ever. And then the doors. The idea that part of their idea was, hey, we're over here. We need to be over there. Let's jump through this door, and jump through this door. And I thought that was really cool. And then the story for that area is okay, but then you get to the ending and you have one of the most badass moments in that world.
Yes, it's Vanitas being like, I will destroy you, and then all of a sudden he just shows up and goes, made you look, and he picks him up, throws him into a door, throws that door into a door, and then throws that door into a door, and then shreds that door.
That's what got me. It was so good because it was like, I thought, because you told me about that scene ahead of time. It was like, yeah, Sully just tackles Vanitas, throws him in a door, and then fucks off. And that's all you told me. So when he picks up that door and he's running and Mike's like there with the cart, he's like, and then they throw that door into another door, and then they take that door and throw that into another door. Like the it's so ridiculous and great. It was probably one of the best comedic moments, and still it was comedic and yet still badass. Yes. And that, I think that's around the time when Sora starts to get fed up with everything too. I think that's the first time he makes one of his snarky quips where he's like, oh, you're here to tell me that everything's going wrong and I'm gonna fail and you're stupid, right? Like that sassy side of Sora, I like that. That was a pretty good character development for him. So Monsters Inc. Favorite world?
Yeah.
I would go with number 2 for me. What's next after that one? Monsters Inc., then Frozen, right?
Yep.
Frozen. Oh man. So
See,
Frozen should have been their big ticket item. If they were marketing to younger kids, Frozen would have been the one to bring them in, and it was a train wreck. It was a really bad world.
I mean, there's definitely parts I disliked about it. The Ice Fortress was kind of a nice touch.
The Ice Fortress was an interesting concept, yeah. But first off, let's talk about things that were intentionally in the level. Going up the mountain 3 different times.
Yeah, I told you about that one.
Yeah,
too.
no, that was super annoying. Like the entire world was just climbing that mountain, and that's not fun at all. It's almost as bad as the whole Tangled thing.
Although to be fair, I'm pretty sure that happened in the movie too.
Yeah, but you didn't even do it with the characters, so that was annoying. Olaf, I hate Olaf. In general, I hate Olaf. And I don't know about you. How long did it take you to find all his body parts?
It took me a while.
I was going insane listening to him talk. It was driving me off the walls. I wanted to die.
And this is why you play with the sound off. No,
oh my god, I
do that with
hate
this game.
that you do that. So Olaf, bad. Climbing the mountain, bad. What did you think of the musical numbers?
I did not mind the Let It Go music never being there because, like I said, there was kind of some funny moments where Sora's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, that was good. Watching Sora, because I don't think Sora has ever actively witnessed somebody just suddenly break out into song. He's been inside of multiple Disney movies, but I think the most musical level was The Little Mermaid, and that was like actually like, hey, we're going to a dance, we're dancing, we're practicing, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
He was just walking up a mountain, freezing cold, and all of a sudden he sees this girl just break into song, dance her heart out, build an ice castle, and it's just, what the hell is going on? And I think that's great.
The Do You Want to Build a Snowman? I was like, this is kind of weird.
So yeah, let's talk about that one, because that is definitely one of the things that a lot of people had a gripe about.
Like
the mixing and the directing choices for that scene were so confusing right out the gate for me. The idea that, like, okay, so Do You Want to Build a Snowman? Really popular song. Obviously, they have to put it in the movie. But instead of having it be a preamble that shows before you get there, it's a flashback. And during that flashback, Anna is talking over the song the entire time. And it was just so confusing and just disorienting for me.
Well, it's also like Sora asked her a question, like, "What happened?" You know, and she goes into this preamble, and then she starts singing, and then they're singing on a log just on this mountain.
Oh yeah, that part too. Like, this is definitely one of the.
It's just like, okay, you're obviously a crazy person.
Yeah, because this is one of the few worlds where they actually admit, like, hey, look, people sing for no reason in this world, and it's weird. And oh man, it was such a strange world. Okay, so one other big boo-boo that was made. So there was the Do You Want to Build a Snowman? That was a big boo-boo. And then during Let It Go, the watermark.
The watermark.
The watermark. So the explanation that I found was when you render in Studio Maya, right, which is the 3D software that they use to build all the characters and animate the scenes, just like Photoshop and the Adobe Creative Cloud, you need a license and a subscription in order to use it, and it verifies that license by using the internet. And what they're saying is, in the render farm, the computer that was in charge of rendering that specific frame, like it's literally just a frame, it most likely disconnected from the internet while rendering, which caused the watermark to appear. But I just, the idea that nerds on the internet can find that and gripe about it so quickly, you'd think that quality checkers at a Disney studio would find that pretty quickly. And the idea that got through makes me think,
especially if it's like on a specific frame,
yeah, I mean,
part.
How easy would it, okay, talking about things I don't know about here, but how hard is it really to re-render one frame? Like, if they had to re-render the entire sequence, I could see that being a pain in the ass.
That's if they noticed it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if it's worse that they noticed it and left it in, or if they didn't notice it. Because that would mean that their quality checkers are just not doing their job.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. It's impossible to check every single thing. You can have a number of things you look for. It can be a long list.
Yeah, but when
I'm
I
not
say
saying it's impossible to check everything. I'm saying it's impossible to know everything to check.
so when I say quality checking, I'm not talking like a beta tester
No,
or a play tester. I'm talking
you're
about
the QA team.
yeah. Because here's the thing: Kingdom Hearts has over 9 hours worth of cutscenes, so there should have been a team in QA that their job was specifically just to watch the cutscenes for render errors.
That depends. QA teams actually usually don't work on a specific portion. There might be a single person on a portion of that, something like that.
Yeah.
But they're most likely going to have other jobs of quality checking.
I just wonder if they're ever going to patch it.
I mean, they could, but I mean, another thing is does it really matter all that much?
No. But overall,
who knows what kind of patch that would involve. If that could possibly create other bugs somehow.
not if they're just replacing a cutscene. It's literally just a video file stored on the computer, so they would just have to replace it. Well, no, I take that back, because unlike in previous games where it's fade to black, play cutscene, fade back to game, these are seamless cutscenes. So it probably is a lot more of a problem than it originally would have been if this was one of the older games. So yeah, overall, Frozen was a flop. I think it's low on the tiers. So I think it's below Tangled, but above Olympus for me. Where is it for you?
I mean, it was probably my least favorite.
Fair enough. And I think that, again, I think the strongest, when Kingdom Hearts is the strongest, is when it plays into your nostalgia for worlds that you grew up with, living with and enjoying. And I think Frozen was a pretty big miss for most of the community that plays this game. It was a really, really good movie, and I'm excited for Frozen 2. But it's not something that I get excited about whenever I see it in pop culture, because it's just so oversaturated and I'm annoyed with it. What's the next world? The next two are Big Hero and Captain Jack Sparrow's Adventure in the Deep Blue Goo, right?
Yep. So
I know how you feel about Pirates. Which one did you play first?
I played Pirates first. Just because, again, I was going by level recommendation.
I played Pirates first because I wanted to save the best for last. I was very excited for Big Hero 6. So let's talk about Pirates. Let's talk about it. It follows the plot of, I believe, the second or third.
I wouldn't know. I've only watched part of the first one. Even then, I didn't really watch the first one. I was making out with the girl at the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like adding the Pirates world a second time is an interesting choice to begin with, because yeah, the first Pirates movie, huge, blockbuster, really big, but nobody really cares about the Pirates movies anymore. And going back and doing like the second or third movie where things really got confusing was an interesting choice. Like, if they were going to do the Pirates world, I think it would have done better to do like what they did for Monsters and have it be kind of its own little original story.
Right.
But I think the best part of the Pirates world is just broing with Jack Sparrow. I think that was the most enjoyable part of it. And from like an emotional kind of like, wow, this is an interesting world, the idea of Sora kind of, because Jack isn't a good guy. Jack isn't a good guy. So when he looks up to Jack and then Jack betrays him or tells him, everything's going to be fine and things like that, it's interesting to see how Sora reacts to those situations. And seeing Sora be kind of a sneaky little boy and have his own plans in the back of his head,
Sneaky boy.
He's a sneaky boy. It was a cool concept. Boats.
I'm not a big boat guy.
Not a big boat guy. I don't enjoy boat combat, and this was definitely one of the less fun boat combats.
Probably one of the biggest Assassin's Creeds that everyone loves. It's 4, about Black Flag, and I honestly never finished Black Flag. And I think a major part of that was the boats. I am not a ship guy, and that's a game that heavily relies on the ship system.
And it's just like, this wasn't something that was advertised, you know? When people see boat combat, that's usually like a big thing. Like, hey, we have boat combat, and then people come for it. This was just kind of shoehorned in.
And I get why they did it. They wanted a big world, and the only way to do that with a pirate's world is islands, and so they needed a ship.
Yeah. Crabs?
The crabs was interesting. I mean, obviously they need to give a way on how to upgrade the ship. I'm kind of glad they only did it with one resource, because they could have done like wood and fabric and all that junk.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad they at least limited it to one resource, and that being crabs. And
But it's fucking crabs.
They also made it pretty easy to accumulate those.
Yeah, because, I mean, it forces you to get 300 right off the bat, and then if you didn't actually explore the islands, which I think I only went out of my way and found one other island, and I found some pretty good stuff on that island. Like, there was actual treasure, and it was fun. You could get crabs just by killing heartless boats.
Yes.
So it was basically just leveling up your boat.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was basically experience points.
I don't know how you had such a difficult time with it, because I beat the entire Jack Sparrow Blue Lagoon world.
It ended up just being that one battle where there's a bunch of ships.
Yeah, there's one big ship battle, and then after that you fly around the whirlpool for a bit and shoot at the Kraken.
Yeah, the whirlpool I had no issue with.
But the amount of times where you actually have to go into true boat combat are pretty few. So it's kind of like, why did you even put it in the first place? So
again, I think it was mostly of a way to enable a bigger world.
Didn't really hit me though. I don't know about you. It was a pretty middle.
To be fair, I think that might have been because of the world placement. At this point, you just unlocked the Pirates world and Big Hero 6. I feel like a majority of people are going to be more hyped for Big Hero 6. But through that, you don't want to fiddle around in Pirates. You don't want to see what there could be, because you're excited for Big Hero.
I was excited for Big Hero, but then on top of that, the world of Pirates wasn't one that I was excited to explore.
Yeah, it means nothing to you.
Like when I said, oh man, I wish the Toy Story world was a little bit more involved, or oh man, I wish the Monsters Inc. world didn't happen in just the factory. When I got to Pirates, I was like, man, I wish this world was smaller. The world they chose to put the most detail into was the world that is the least favorable to the audience. Like, nobody really cares about pirates anymore, and it has boat combat in it, which just kind of slows everything down, and it was just a weird choice for that one to be the one that they went all out on, because you can see that the quality goes through the roof. Like, holy crap, the character models and the animation and the acting and everything that has to do with that world outside of the gameplay is extremely well done and polished. I loved how Goofy and Donald looked in that world. But the world itself wasn't good. I'd say it was pretty middle of the road, kind of like, let's get this over with. That was the first world that I actually thought, let's get this over with. Even Frozen, I was kind of interested to see what direction they went. I wasn't upset with Frozen until it was done.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, I'd say the world probably felt like middle of the spectrum for me.
I agree.
It was above Frozen, Tangled, and Olympus, but past that, that's probably where it kind of falls.
All right, so we're down to the last Disney World before we get into the meat of it.
Yep.
Big Hero 6, and I actually don't have a lot to say on Big Hero 6. It was another one of those worlds where it was like, yes, I am enjoying all of this.
Yes, it was very enjoyable. One thing I will mention, though, is when you're going to rescue all the team members.
Oh, that was confusing.
And one of the ones, you have to hit the thing that they're stuck in with this giant ball.
I could not figure that out. I had to look up a walkthrough for that.
It took me about 20 minutes to find it. I somehow managed to find it in time to not fail.
Yeah, no, same thing for me. Because the walkthrough said, get the ball from earlier. And I was like, wait, where is it? Where did I put it? this is a city and that is a ball the size of a building, but I have no idea where it is.
I was looking on top of buildings because I assumed it would be reset.
No, it was
No,
just
it was on the
out
street.
there, wherever the hell you left it. And yeah, so that was a really wonky bit. Evil Baymax was a little weird.
Yeah.
So the whole plot line with the Riku and the actual like boss fight, that was a little wonky for me, but my favorite part was just, hey, bro out with some super bros. And the whole scene where it's like, let's do a racetrack, and then you go do all this stuff, and then it shows this cutscene where Sora's being all badass and they're all learning how to be a better superhero from him, and the dorky guy in the monster suit's just like, ice powers? Fire and ice. Mortal enemies, or are they? Like, that was good. That was cute.
Tisk, leave your phone sound on.
Yeah. It was a good world. I think the world itself was empty, but that was purposely done because it was supposed to be the world that you explore and enjoy, and there's all these different time trials in it, and I want to go back and do those time trials. I don't know about you.
Maybe, probably. I mean, I plan on at least attempting to 100% the game. I'm sure there might be something where I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. But I'd like to see how much of it I could complete. But yeah, that was the last world.
Yeah, and I would say my final ranking would be Toy Story number 1, Monsters Inc. number 2, Big Hero 6 number 3, then Tangled, then Frozen, then Pirates, then Olympus.
Mine's probably a bit different. Would probably be Monsters, then Toy, then Big Hero 6, and then I would go Pirates, Olympus, Tangled, Frozen. Am I forgetting what? Oh, Twilight.
I didn't really count Twilight down, but
I went and put it on the ranking there.
I think it's nice that we can both agree that the 3 best worlds were Monsters, Toy Story, and Big Hero. Like, those were definitely the worlds where I had the biggest smile on my face and I was just having fun. You know, those were the best worlds. And then there was the last 3 hours of the game.
Yeah, it was long because it's all boss battles.
It was just a giant fucking boss rush. It was 3 different boss rushes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even more than that. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, I think maybe 4, and then you have all the different Xehanorts before you get to the final Xehanort.
And then there was the Lich. The Lich was my least favorite part. After the big boom. Okay, so let's go through this plot by plot. Okay, so you get there and you have one of these big set piece battles, which was my favorite part of Kingdom Hearts 2. Like, the best part of Kingdom Hearts 2, in my opinion, was going full Super Saiyan and fighting thousands of Heartless. All right, so getting to do that in this one felt so good.
Yes,
and it was just the amount of mayhem that you cause is crazy. Like, the scale of the Kingdom Hearts 2 battle was pretty good. This one was intense. Like, it was a lot of fun. So that was a great introduction to what the rest of the fights were going to be like. You pass through this little chasm after you kick some ass.
Well, I just want to mention one part before we get to that, is when you go on the roller coaster during that fight, and you're shooting at the horde below, and
you're just watching it fucking explode. You make a crater in the ground, don't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
But even further from that is, you can actually see the Heartless getting blown away.
Yeah.
That part I really enjoyed. And was like, wow, they really went in on that.
Like, if you look at it, you can see that they took some liberties with how they did it because they didn't want to like overclock your fucking PS4
with assets and everything.
Yeah, so there's like the further away ones are like little 2D sprites, you know, but it like the illusion of that grand fight is so well done, and it gave you this kind of feeling of power, like, yeah, we just did that, we can do anything. And then you go through to the other side of the mountain. You
Yep.
save because you know shit's about to get real.
Yep.
And then shit hits the fan real hard, real fast,
Yeah.
real bad.
Basically.
Because
And this is the part where I was basically convinced that Sora had the power of awakening again. I mean, this is after, and honestly, I think he's had it since they got Aqua back.
so that's the thing, though, right? Like, oh yeah, we completely breezed over that.
We did.
So before you go to the final battle, there's the whole getting the band back together scene. So you go to the world of darkness, you get Aqua, you fight her because she's emo as fuck, and then you're just like, hey, stop that. And she's like, okay. And then after you get Aqua, she's like, I need Ventus. So you go to Castle Oblivion, which I told you this, and you didn't believe me. Castle Oblivion turns into their old...
it's not that I didn't believe you. I just told you I didn't remember.
Yeah, it turns into... Aqua put a spell on it, and she...
It's very interesting how that came back, by the way.
Yeah. They reveal that it's actually the castle that they used to train in with Master Ericus. Inside is Ventus taking his nap. They wake up Ventus. Aqua says, hey, you saved my ass a bunch of times. My turn to save you. She fights Vanitas, gets her ass kicked by Vanitas. Ventus wakes up. So now you got Ventus and Aqua. You've got Riku, Mickey, Kairi,
No.
Lee.
Oh, you're just talking overall. I thought we were talking about there at that time.
No, not at that time. So after you get Ventus and Aqua, you meet up with Yensid, and all the good guys get together. Then we go to the final battle. So now we've crossed the threshold. We've had our big fight, and now we're ready to start meaning business. And Terranort comes out, and he's just like, I'm going to fucking kill you before you get a chance to do anything, you little bitch.
Yeah.
Dumbass. And he summons a giant tornado of shadowlings, big old scary boom booms, and everyone fucking dies.
Yeah.
Everyone actually dies. Yes, it is a Disney death and they come back, but you don't know that's a possibility at the time. So that scene came out of nowhere for me.
Well, I mean, darkness pretty much envelops you from Sora's perspective. And Sora wakes up in this place where
Basically heaven.
I mean, the way they described it was limbo.
Basically. And it was really cool because it's like, obviously you've been there before. This little fluffy nugget thing that I'm sure was part of a different game that I didn't remember.
I don't remember it, but apparently
it's got a thing for Ventus, but you're in the realm of just dead. You're dead. And you have to collect yourself. And this is one of the trippiest scenes in the game, and I absolutely loved it. It was so cool.
I'm sure it wasn't possible, but I was really afraid of falling off.
I thought I was going to fall at one point, and then I saw, like, I had one Sora left to grab, and it was like I was free falling. I was about to hit the ground and die, or at least I thought I was, and I saw that one Sora, and I nabbed it as I was falling. And I ended up resetting and falling back to the top. And it was the next round because there was another round of collecting Soras. So that was a really interesting free running segment. That was cool. Sora legit dies. And then you meet the Lich. So you've come back to life and you're time traveling now?
This part's a bit confusing.
This is where the plot gets a little wonky for me.
Because you come back and Terra is able to possess his armor because his heart is still a thing. It's currently in his body, and you end up seeing that he can possess multiple different things as long as they're in regard to him.
Mm-hmm.
So he possesses his armor to stop Terranort from killing everybody, which is appreciated. I enjoyed that little...
Well, you're forgetting the part where Sora goes by and revives everyone.
Oh, yeah.
That's the confusing part for me. So the power of waking is what he ends up using to save all of his friends from death. And the way that works is he's in free fall in basically the realm of darkness.
There's an explanation for that, and it's from Dream Drop. Is the way they travel worlds is basically a free fall instead of gummy ship.
Yeah, so that's not the part that confuses me. The part that confuses me is the worlds that you're going to. You're chasing this Heartless called the Lich, and what it does is it takes hearts of people that are dead and basically just, I don't know, super kills them.
holds them.
It holds them inside of itself in the darkness. And you free fall and go from world to world, and the worlds are empty. And it's just this really weird kind of miasma around the whole thing that just confuses me. So there is no time travel, right? You're just moving from realm to realm,
Right.
finding their hearts. And every time you find a new realm, you fight the Lich, save a person, and you go back, and then the time travel happens. Because when you save everyone's hearts, you don't just resurrect.
It starts back at the beginning.
You start back at the beginning of the fight, and then Terra comes out of nowhere. Terra wasn't there the first time around.
Right.
And he just is suddenly there with his big wibbly goobly keyblade whip thing. And his nuke gun. Holy shit.
Yes, his form changes were very awesome.
His form changes were OP as hell, and I'm so pissed off that we never get to do anything like that, because that was badass. And then the fight happens. Yensid shows up because there's a giant sea of Heartless, and he says, I'll part the seas for you, and you go through, and then boss rush.
Yes, basically you end up fighting everyone. Yeah.
And I like how they segmented them off. So everyone's it's always a group of 2. You help them save people, and the outcomes every time are something different. So like the one where you are fighting, I'm not going to say their names. I'm going to say who you're fighting with. So there's one where you fight with Mickey, and when you fight with Mickey, nothing really happens. You kill the guys. You have their last rites, basically, where you say, hey, you can still turn things around. And then you move on to Riku, and you fight with Riku, and the ending to that one is just you and Riku kind of fuck off and go on to the next room. And then one of the rooms is Kairi and Axel.
Yes.
And in that room, there's a huge, like, plot thing. A bunch of stuff happens. Axel ends up getting injured. I don't remember what happens to Kairi, but...
Kairi gets kidnapped. By, Xemnas, I want to say?
Yeah, so Kairi gets turned into the damsel of distress again. And in this moment where everything looks like it's about to go wrong, Roxas comes out of nowhere and badasses the hell out of everything. And I'm pissed off because, Roxas gets to dual wield Keyblades. Roxas gets to be cool. Because it's so upsetting. It was my favorite thing. Dual wielding is the best shit. And they take that away from you. And there's cool weapons in 3. There really are. There's some cool stuff. But let me just take 2 swords out and start whipping people up. But Roxas ends up coming back, and one of the people you're fighting is actually Xion. They never explain where Xion came from. She's just there now.
She was a replica. They explained that.
They made another replica of Xion for some reason, because I guess they ran out of ideas.
Because they couldn't Nord Sora.
Yeah, exactly. So Xion has a change of heart. Her and Roxas team up. They meet up with Axel, so that's your first group of friendly 3s that are reunited. And then there's the Terra fight, and you save Terra, so Aqua Ventus and Terra are reunited. And
that was a really interesting one, because this time Terra possesses...
Oh, that was a really cool moment.
Heartless.
Yeah. Like, so he's got these stitches on his mouth, and he, like, mumbles through the stitches, like, you won't do this to me. And then he just rips it off. And he starts talking and telling Xehanort off, like, you can't do this to me anymore. And suddenly, through some magic power of light shit, he gets saved. And it was a really cool moment. That was one of the best badass moments. There's a few, like, the final act of the game is just badass moment after badass moment.
Yes.
And then giant crippling defeat, then more badass moments. So there was the initial death, and that was fucky. And that sucked. And then a bunch of people in the original 7 of Light that were originally going to fight, some get injured, some get tagged out. So the final 7 is not what the original 7 were going to be.
Yes.
The final 7 is Axel, Roxas, Xion, Sora, Terra, Aqua, Ventus, and Mickey and Riku are the ones that are left.
And then Donald and Goofy.
And Donald and Goofy, because they're fucking everywhere. It's just like, we're gonna help you save the day. And fuck off. at that point they were no longer necessary, except that they had to keep the theme of friendship going. And then it looks like they're gonna lose. You fight Xehanort, and Xehanort, and then you think you're gonna win, and then fucking old man Xehanort goddamn murks fucking Kairi. Just straight up,
just like, hey, remember when I took her? Boom!
Just fucking
just freezes her into ice,
and then dead. She's dead again. And you're like, wait, what? Because part of you is like, oh, there was some magic involved. Maybe that wasn't really what happened. And then you see her heart, and you're just like, oh shit, Kairi died, and this time she's dead.
Yep.
And
dead.
Sora has this huge moment of just like, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
I was almost certain it was gonna take like an insanity twist right there where Sora turns evil.
No, that's because one of the theories that I saw that I was really hoping for was like Sora falls to darkness. But, oh man, that was just, it pissed me off. I was like, that's really good, but that pissed me off. And then you have this moment where everybody feels like they've lost. And then they decide that they're going to keep fighting. And the way they're going to do that is they're going to send Sora, Donald, and Goofy
through to Xehanort's world.
To Xehanort's world, where they fight Xehanort. And he is a big badass, and it's a really cool fight.
Yeah.
Except for the underwater portion. Why did they make a part of it underwater?
I don't know.
They probably, okay. So here's what I'm thinking. Right, the designers were like, hey, we made underwater combat for exactly one level. We need to get some use out of this.
Well, it might also be something to reflect because, this world is supposedly the origin of all worlds. So it might have been something to reflect, because we've seen a lot of worlds throughout the gameplay. Pirates had the underwater portion. So it might have been to reflect, hey, this is where all that comes into play.
Yeah, I guess that could have been part of it. And then, oh yeah, before that fight, all of Organization 13 shows up in masks.
Well,
and
we don't know if that's them.
They call it Organization 13. They're not in trench coats. They're just really weird armor suits, and it's all 13. And they have the weapon and fighting abilities of the original Organization 13 members. And part of me was like, shit, am I gonna have to fight all 13 of them at once?
Well,
which is what you do, but
they share one health.
They share one health bar, and I was really worried for a long time that they weren't sharing one health bar, because
it was hard to tell.
I was dying so constantly, I had no time to check. But you get through that, you fight Xehanort in his big buff clothes, and then he gets screwed up, and he teleports to the top of a tower, and you fight him again as Old Man, and that's a really cool fight.
That was probably the hardest fight.
Oh, it was hard. I think I died 3 times.
I died a couple times, and then at this point it was 2 a.m. in the morning. I was tired.
That's right where I was.
And I'd messaging you. I was like, no, I'm turning in for the night. Turned in for the night. Woke up, beat it on my first try.
See, my drive to complete this game must have been stronger than yours, because it was 2 a.m. I died, and I was like, no. This is it. This is the final fight. It has to be. I wanted to see the end. So I went through and I fought him again, and I did it. And it felt so good. But I want to talk about that fight in general for a second, because there's something that he does in this that I have questions about, because it happens at other points in the game, and they never really go into detail or explain what exactly is happening. So at one point, Xehanort says, let me take that light from you, or something like that. And he literally takes the light from Sora, and you turn into Dark Sora, or Angry Sora, or Evil Sora, right? And he's got darkness just seeping off of him, and it's very obvious that Sora is, in fact, wielding darkness and fighting with darkness, which is evil, bad juju, and Sora's supposed to be a good boy. But when you take the light away, in that sense, it made sense during that fight for that ability to happen. But throughout Kingdom Hearts 3, he form changes into that form as a last resort.
Yes.
And it never happens in a scene, in a cutscene, or on a plot point. Donald and Goofy never mention it, but it's just like you're on the brink of death and you turn into darkness and you fuck shit up and then you're perfectly fine. And Donald and Goofy never look at you and be like, hey, so
You okay, bud?
how did you do that? And they don't explain why he does it or how he does it. And I feel like that there's some vagueness to it, but then there's also the whole like, hey, this is just him being badass, brush it under the rug kind of thing. And I think it would have been interesting to explore, like, is Sora okay with doing this? Does he have control over it? Is he...
I think it's very obvious he doesn't have control.
So I think the best explanation for it in my head is, like, that's part of the reason why he never got to become a Keyblade Master is he's in the same kind of
boat that Terra was?
Yeah, he's having the same kind of problem Terra had, where it's like he doesn't have control over the darkness. It can still take over him.
Yeah, because I don't know if you remember, Al, but in 2, that certain form, it was a lot more out of control.
Yeah, because there was that form, and then there was anti-form. And I would get anti-form every once in a while, but when I got that dark form, I was just confused. And that's the thing, like, that's been around for a while, since 2. So this is an issue he's dealt with for a long time, and yet nobody ever talks about it. Nobody ever asks him what's going on. No one ever questions it. And he's the only one who does it outside of Riku. And when Riku did it, it was a bad thing. When Riku was using the darkness and channeling the darkness, it was a problem.
Yes.
So you beat Xehanort.
Yep.
And then the ending happens.
Yeah, and that's where, and they've shown it before. I think it was in Birth by Sleep's secret scene, where Master Ericus has actually been inside Terra's heart since their battle.
Also, side note, young Ericus is voice acted by Drake Bell, and I love it.
So he comes out, and he apologizes to like all of his students because he almost did a bad thing.
A lot of bad things happened.
Yeah, and he was like, "Look, Xehanort, it's just time, man." He understood Xehanort was trying to clear the darkness that currently was.
Yeah, that's the thing. We never really get explanations as to what Xehanort's motivations are throughout the entire series. They almost kind of make it seem like he is this truly evil guy who wants to do these things just out of curiosity and a sake of, chaos. And then at the last minute they drop on us like, oh no, he was doing this because, he's fed up with the world and the way it is. There's too much darkness in it. And it's a very nuclear option, but you can kind of see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
But the idea that Ericus just comes out and he's like, hey, we're done here. He's like, oh, okay. Can we be best friends? Yeah, we're best friends. Okay, cool. Let's go to heaven together. Bye. And then that's the end of that entire plot.
I think it's from wielding the Keyblade in darkness. It just wore his body.
So he was just like, well, I could die or I can just apologize and then everybody will be cool with it.
Well, no, he did die, basically. It was his body basically being like, I'm done, yo.
Yeah.
Spirit form.
So that happens, and then we get the kind of the big ending, because everybody's had their happy ending except for Sora.
Well, they show them back at the graveyard, and Sora's like,
yeah, so
I can't go back.
That's what I was about to say was all the plot threads except for 2, except for 3 have been solved, and Sora's standing there and he says, "No. Literally everything I've done for the past 10 years has been for Kairi, and she's fucking dead, and I'm fixing this shit." And they're like, "Yo, you can't do that, man. You're gonna die or some shit."
And he goes, "Fuck that. Everyone's been telling me what to do since day one. I do me now."
And he just kind of goes somewhere. He goes ghost.
He uses the power of waking to travel hearts.
Yeah. And he does that, and we know because of the ending cutscene that shows Kairi sitting on the tree that Kairi comes back, and Sora does not.
Yeah.
One of the downsides of the power of waking is that there is the possibility that you won't come back.
Well, if used incorrectly, the power of waking is meant to be used to travel worlds, sleeping worlds,
Mm-hmm.
not hearts. It's not meant to awaken a sleeping heart.
which is what Sora does. And the implication in the non-secret ending is that Sora is in essence dead.
Yes.
So everybody has a happy ending except for Sora. The final end scene is Sora sitting in a throne with a cute little crown on, and he's got a little sassy pose. It's nice. End credits roll. You see everyone having a happy ending, and then two things happen that you're just like, oh yeah, completely forgot about that. So in every single world you go to, basically, every once in a while, you'll see Maleficent and Pete just kind of fucking around. They're like, we're looking for a box. And then he's just like, why is there a box? And she's just like, it is etched. And you're like, etched in what? Why is it etched? Why is it being etched to make it okay? And you think that this is going to play into the ending of the game in some way, and it just absolutely doesn't. The credits roll, and then dumb thing number two happens. The first thing dumb thing happens is, first off, you find out that Xigbar is A, not dead, B, an immortal being that is actually the Master of Masters from hundreds of years in the past.
Yes.
All of his students.
He is the real Nort.
Yeah. All of his students are also not dead, despite being hundreds of years old, and they have plans.
Those are, I'm pretty sure, the Lost Masters.
Yes. So Xigbar and the Lost Masters have plans, and they're going to be the big bads for the next couple games. And during that time, Maleficent and Pete are just kind of chilling in the back, and they're watching all this shit go down because they finally found the box that they were after, because it's Xigbar's box.
Yes.
At one point in the game, Maleficent says this line where she's like, Pete's like, well, where's the box? And she's just like, no, you idiot. When is the box? And I'm just like, fuck you. But then they find their box, so their little plot line's not resolved either. So now you've got the setup for the next set of Kingdom Hearts games being the big bad cult of the Master of Masters and his henchmen. And you've got Maleficent fucking doing something. Apparently she's going to steal the box from Xigbar. And that's how the game ends. And it just doesn't... I don't know. What did you think?
I mean, I knew they were going to introduce another storyline.
I did too.
It's going to be interesting to see what kind of take they take on it. Because, I mean, up to this point, it's been one storyline. It's been from perspective of mainly Sora. We played as the other Keyblade wielders from before, Ventus, Aqua, Terra. We've also played as Roxas. But it's all revolved around Sora.
Or Sora-like people. Ventus and Roxas are directly connected to Sora.
Yeah.
They're all a part of the same storyline. And
they seem to very much be like, their stories are now resolved.
Yeah, everybody's on the island playing Frisbee, having a good time.
The one thing I did notice is Riku laying on the beach did not look very resolved.
Well, no, his best friend's dead. I mean, that's along the same lines as Kairi sitting on the tree,
right? But
without Sora.
My point is, one of the characters you've gotten to play as in the last few games has been Riku.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if they're going to shift focus onto Riku.
I would think that would be a possibility, because let's talk about the secret ending real quick. So the secret ending is it's two different perspectives. You see Sora in a form of Tokyo, and you see Riku in a form of Tokyo. And the implication is Sora is in the form of Tokyo that is in The World Ends With You, which is supposed to be the afterlife. And the Tokyo that Riku is in is a more realistic Tokyo, and people are saying it's either A, the real world, or B, it is the Tokyo that is seen in the fake game Varimus Rex that is in the Toy Story game.
Yes.
So if that is the case, I could see one of the plot lines being Riku, who, as we could see from the beach, still has unresolved feelings about all of this, trying to find a way to bring Sora back. And I would be totally down for a game as playing as Riku. He's a cool guy.
And it definitely seems like they're shifting more so, because before they used to rely on a lot of Disney characters, stuff like that. it seems like they're shifting more so onto Square Enix characters.
Well, you say that, but one of my biggest gripes that I had, and I did
not Final Fantasy, Square Enix.
Yeah, I know. I was sitting on the credit scene, smiling, and then I sat there for a second. I was like, wait a minute. There wasn't a single Square Enix character in this entire game. There's a statue of Cloud and Aurelius, and that's it. I mean, Cloud, Sephiroth, Leon, Yuffie, and Aeris, and to extent the fairy pixie girls in Kingdom Hearts 2, they were all major characters and major movers in the storyline for 2, and none of them are around in Kingdom Hearts 3. And I'm sure there's a lot of like logistical reasons and like funding.
Being, go to Bastion.
Yeah, and well, Twilight Town also has some Final Fantasy characters that aren't in the game, because the little girl in the black in the big hat and the blue shirt, the short girl, she's a wizard from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, but she's not as big of a one that's usually in Kingdom Hearts.
No, but Cypher and almost all of the characters that are in Twilight Town that are enemies that you fight in that little fighting competition, they're all Final Fantasy characters. And even though we go back to Twilight Town and they live in Twilight Town, we don't see them. So I'm sure there was some kind of like production reason behind it, but that was a little upsetting to me, because the whole fun of Kingdom Hearts is the Final Fantasy X Kingdom Hearts X Disney, and they kind of just like, well, we've got a bunch of original anime spiky haired characters, so we don't have to steal from Square Enix anymore.
Well, no. Those are still Square Enix characters.
Yeah, I know, but they're not
Final Fantasy characters.
Yeah, it's no longer a crossover thing.
Well, and it originally wasn't really supposed to be. I mean, it was Final Fantasy mixed with Disney, but the reason why they brought in all those Final Fantasy characters is so they would have some characters that weren't necessarily new characters, but could help diversify the roster.
Yeah, I wish they would have kept with it, because I mean the idea that the only 2 Square Enix worlds you see is Verimus Rex, which is possibly going to be a real game, or at least a tie-in to Kingdom Hearts,
even if it isn't,
and a brief clip of the world from The World Ends With You, despite the fact that Neku was in Dream Drop Distance.
Yes. A lot of characters from that game were in Dream Drop Distance.
It's upsetting. It's upsetting to me.
It's 3 to 4.
So overall, the whole idea going into Kingdom Hearts 3 for me was I was expecting this to be the conclusion. I was expecting all of the threads to be, nicely tied up, and this seems like, if anything, it's the prequel to the next series. It feels like this whole...
I mean, that's
this whole game
arcs work.
Yeah, this whole game was a setup. It wasn't the conclusion. This is the rising action, not the...
It was a conclusion, but it's the rising action to the next arc.
Right. So...
Because what is dubbed as the last arc is the Keyblade War.
Right.
It encompasses the first Keyblade War and how Xehanort has tried to start a new one since then.
Oh, speaking of the Keyblade War, there was a certain part in the final fight that I figured it out pretty quickly, but I'm curious to know if you figured it out and understood what it was. So, when you get the Starlight Keyblade and you fight the tornado after being resurrected, you surf on a bunch of Keyblades, right? Yeah. And you have to mash triangle to win.
Yeah.
And all of the command prompts were names
of people who play the mobile game.
Yeah, it was people who played the mobile game. At first, I was really worried that it was one of those connecting with the hearts of others things, which it technically is. But I was worried that it was going to be, if you don't have an internet connection, you can't do this, because you're literally getting Keyblades from other people playing the game right now. I
think they just took a roster of a list of usernames, or like...
I think it was like high scorers or something like that, or if you did certain things in the game, you were in Kingdom Hearts 3. But that was a neat little touch. So, to wrap things up, I guess overall, what were your kind of full feelings of the game? How did you feel coming out of Kingdom Hearts?
Oh, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's the first Kingdom Hearts that I've blown through that fast.
Oh yeah, definitely the fastest I've ever played through one of them.
But I enjoyed it quite a lot. I'm excited for the next one. I'm excited to see where they take it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where they take it. I'm not necessarily excited. At this point, the childhood nostalgia is completely rubbed off, and I am viewing this as a series as an adult, and they can't win me over with kind words anymore. My opinion of Kingdom Hearts 3 is it was a pretty mixed bag for me. There were some points in the game that either made me smile or hit me in the feels really hard, and then there was a lot of kind of nothing in between those. So I enjoyed the game, but I think it could have been better in the long run.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah, anything else to add?
That's about it.
All right, well, this has been Logan.
And this has been Brandon.
And this was the first episode of the what would you say? The first episode
of the revamped
non-narrated first-person podcast. Next week we'll have an episode where we're going to be reviewing a manga that we read. We promise that not every episode is going to be super weeby, but we've got more stuff that we want to talk about. So we'll see you.
There will be lots of weeb.
There probably will be. Yes, we're sorry. All right, we'll see you in the next one.